We're going to begin our study of the coordinate plane. First, I want to do a quick review. Last year, you should have worked with quadrant 1, which would have looked like this. I've got 3 questions here for you. I'm going to ask you to pause the video, see if you can answer them, and then we'll come back and talk about them. So make sure you pause. All right, so let's go ahead and let's label the axes and the origin. So on a coordinate plane, you have 2 axes. Our x-axis is our horizontal axis. It runs side to side. And our y-axis is our vertical axis. It runs up and down. And I always remember that because to me a y looks tall, like it's tall and straight, so that would be up and down. The origin is right where these 2 axes intersect. So we label this as the origin, and it has an ordered pair of 0, 0. So now this one's done. We're going to put point A at 5, 3, the ordered pair 5, 3. So to do this, we first move side to side, and then we move up and down. So we're going to start at the origin. We're going to move over to the 5. And then we're going to move up to the 3. 1, 2, 3. And we put our point right there on our coordinate plane. Now, it's super important that we go ahead and we label this point. This is point A. So now that's done. Question 3 asks us to write the coordinates for point B. We always go side to side first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at where that B is and I'm going to count over so that I'm on this little line here that goes up to where that B is. So when I look at the bottom here, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So on the x-axis, we're at 6. And then I have to count up to where he is on the y. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So his ordered pair would be 6, 8 for point B. Hopefully, quick review, you remember all this about the coordinate plane. What you need to know about the coordinate plane is that it really contains 2 number lines. That's all the axes are, is 2 different number lines. One is horizontal. That's our x-axis, and one is vertical. That's our y-axis. Ordered pairs always name the x value first, followed by the y value. So think of it as being in alphabetical order. First, we have our x. Second, we have our y. Every ordered pair is that way. When placing points on the coordinate plane, you always begin at the origin. Remember that origin is that 0, 0 location where the 2 number lines intersect. First, you move left or right for the x-coordinate, and then up or down for the y-coordinate. And of course, you always want to make sure that you label your point. This is the type of coordinate plane that we'll be working with this year. It is a full coordinate plane. It has 4 quadrants, and those quadrants are labeled in a counterclockwise manner. So that means they go backwards around what the clock is used to. So this is what we would call quadrant 1. This is what you worked with in elementary school. Sometimes you'll see it represented as Q1. Sometimes you'll see it represented with the Roman numeral 1. So these are all ways that you can write quadrant 1. Well, then I'm going to move counterclockwise and I'm going to come to what is quadrant 2. Quadrant 2 can be labeled with just the Q2, or sometimes it's labeled with the Roman numeral 2, which looks like 2 capital I's. Down below that, we have quadrant 3. Or you'll see it labeled as Q3, or sometimes you'll see it with the Roman numeral 3, which is 3 I's, capital I's. And then lastly, we have quadrant 4. You'll see it labeled as Q4, or you will see it labeled with the Roman numeral 4, which looks like a capital I and a capital V stuck together. Now, these quadrants have a special pattern that they follow. All of the coordinates in quadrant 1 are positive, meaning the X is positive and the Y is positive. And if you look at that, you'll see that that makes sense. So like if we move over to the right and then up, those numbers are all going to be positive. They're in quadrant 1, so they are definitely positive. All of your coordinates in quadrant 2 are going to be a negative X and a positive Y. So if you look at that on the quadrant plane, you know that we are starting at the origin and we move left first because we want to be in quadrant 2. So if you look at all those numbers there along the x-axis, you'll see that they're negative. And then when we move up, they are positive. So everything within quadrant 2 would be a negative positive value. All the coordinates in quadrant 3 are a negative x and a negative y, so they're negative, negative. So we would start at the origin, we would move over to the left, which are all negative values, and then down into quadrant 3. Again, that y-axis is negative values, so that gives us negative, negative. In quadrant 4, all of the coordinates are positive, negative. So we start at the origin, our x would take us in the positive direction, and then our y would take us in the negative direction. So we have a positive, negative ordered pair for every value within quadrant 4. Sometimes you are going to have points that fall directly on the axis. So if our x is 0 and our y is some number, what axis is it going to be on? Well, if we start at that origin and it's 0, that means we're going to stay there at the 0. And then we have to move up to, say, the 5. Well, this point is directly on the y-axis. So if the x is 0, the point will be on the y. On the other hand, let's say we have a 5 as our x and a 0 as our y. What happens this time? So I'm going to start at the origin. I'm going to move over to my 5 for my x value, and then my y is 0, so I don't move up or down at all. So that means that this is on my x-axis. So if the x is 0, the point's on the y. If the y is 0, the point's on the x. I want you to tell me which quadrant or axis the following points would be in. Remember, this is our quadrant 1, this is quadrant 2, this is quadrant 3, and this is quadrant 4. Go ahead and pause this video and then come back and check your answers. All right, check your work. Did you get the same answers that I did? If not, come and see me. Let's talk about it.